Perfect. So I can see Ibn as well. Very good afternoon to you, Ibn. Very good afternoon to Anubhav, and very good afternoon to Ipshita, you as well. And good afternoon to all of you listening on Zoom or Facebook or YouTube, one of the channels where this is getting telecasted. So thank you so much for joining us. This is day 15 of Startup September. Startup September is a month-long celebration of the startup ecosystem by Head Start and many other organizations together that's come together to celebrate the startup ecosystem. And in the last 15 days, we've done close to about 30 different sessions focused on incubators, startups, and today we've got a couple of sessions with Startup India. And today's session is going to be focused on two stakeholders. The first 1 hour is going to be with Anubhav Kumar, and that session is going to be split into two, where one part of it is going to be focused on working on the Startup India Seed Fund scheme, focused on incubators, on how incubators can apply to benefit or get the Startup India Seed Fund scheme. And the second part is for startups to apply for the Startup India Seed Fund scheme and gain the grant. So we're going to split it into two, where Anubhav is going to run us through the basics of both sides for incubators, for startups, and then we'll open up for questions. Eben and I will be here to moderate some questions and ensure that the questions are taken to Anubhav. And post that, we will have a session with Ipshita, and Ipshita is from the Interministerial Board of DPIIT, and as a part of it, she's going to help us understand more about the recognitions and the tax breaks or the tax exemptions that we all know, we all have heard of from DPIIT, right? The idea is to have a conversation with her, to hear her on what exactly are the recognitions and exemptions, and then get our queries resolved through questions that we'll have for her. So these are the two people. Eben, over to you. You can get the session started for us with Anubhav.
Thanks, Gautam. Thanks for the intro, the gist about the program. Welcome, Anubhav and Ipshita. So I would like to introduce Anubhav first. Anubhav is a finance guy by graduate and also have a master's and MPhil in sociology. He was previously with LSR College teaching sociology and joined Startup India team with Invest India. And he's the one who made kind of the operationalization for seed fund, Startup India seed fund scheme, which all of our startups in India is looking keenly looking into. And much happy to welcome Anubhav for this workshop where you can help all Indian startup ecosystem or startups who is looking to raise funds through Seed Fund India scheme. And welcome, over to you, Anubhav.
Yeah, just checking, am I audible?
Yes, Anubhav, you are loud and clear. And just to set the context, we've got a mix of incubator CEOs as well as founders. And of course, you can set the context on what you want to take first, whether you want to take it towards incubators first or startups first. And just for your information, there are a bunch of invitees on the Zoom call. We're also live on Facebook and YouTube, on Head Start and our partner network. What we will do is, Eben and I, we will keep curating questions from the three channels for you, and we'll keep putting those questions for you. Whenever you believe you want to take a break for questions, we will take that up for you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Gautam. Thank you, Eben. I'm just delighted to be a part of this Startup September and here to help as many startups and as many incubators as I can in steering their way through this what has now become the flagship scheme of Startup India, which is the Startup India Seed Fund scheme. So without any further delay, I'm just going to share my screen, and I'm just going to take not more than 10-15 minutes to run everybody who's present here through the basics of the scheme, which would basically consist of highlighting the need for the scheme, basic contours of what the scheme entails for those who want to participate in the scheme, and at the same time, certain eligibility criteria that you as an incubator or as a startup should have to comply with if you want to become a part of this scheme. So I have a very short presentation that I would like to share. Okay, so why the need for this scheme? I mean, as we all know that startups have now become the buzzword, not just in the Silicon Valley, not just in the Silicon Valley of India, that is Bangalore, but in fact has become the buzzword within the government, within various stakeholders of the government. And not more than a month ago, we all saw the Prime Minister making a clarion call from the Red Fort that he wants India to become the largest startup destination in the world. And we at Startup India are committed, with the help of all the stakeholders that are present here, in making that into a reality. Now, we see that in about last 5 years, we've had a tremendous growth in terms of the startup potential of our society, right? We've had more than 7,000, more than 8,000 startups adding to the ecosystem every single year, right? And with this addition, we also see that a lot of startups germinate with nothing more than what can be called a potential idea. Now, the point behind this scheme was to support those sort of ideas, right? Because we all know that once a startup reaches a certain stage in its life cycles, stages such as proof of concept, stages such as market commercialization or scaling up, these stages entail an active interest from VCs, from angel investors, and from private investments as well. But what happens to those startups which have very, very sound potential, but nobody is ready to invest in those ideas because they don't have a proof of concept to show or a market commercialization strategy to promise, right? The idea behind Seed Fund scheme was to support these startups, right? These early stage startups which have very good technology-based idea, and this idea needs to be funded in its very early stages through, let's say, grants, through very, very nominally interest rate loans, and through convertible debentures, which can later be transformed into equity, right? So the idea behind this scheme basically was to support these startups. Now, I'm very sure that I don't need to explain this graph to the audience that is present here. But just to highlight what I've been speaking for the past couple of minutes, seed fund basically becomes very, very important to prevent startups from falling into this valley of death in their very, very early stage, right? And we believe at Startup India that if a startup with very good idea can be supported at this stage, the startup can grow to a stage whereby it can seek public funding in the forms of IPOs, it can seek private investments from VCs, angel investors, and so on and so forth, right? So in this purview, in the parlance of this need to fund these early stage startups, Startup India Seed Fund scheme was announced on 16th January 2021 by the Honorable Prime Minister. And within a span of less than 3 months, the scheme was operationalized and the applications were open and are continued to be open for the incubators to apply under the scheme. Now, this is how the scheme is functioning. DPIIT, Startup India is a part of DPIIT. So DPIIT together with Startup India is responsible for overseeing the scheme, for regulating the scheme, and for ensuring that the scheme functions in a very smooth way. Now, the way in which the government has ensured that the best possible talent gets picked up as incubator or as startup as part of the scheme is by ensuring that we have an experts advisory committee, which consists of government experts, government representatives, as well as representatives from the private sector. The scheme, the composition of this EAC is available on the Seed Fund website, and anybody can go and check out the committee. And the moment you check out this committee, you'll find a certain unique composition, which is very, very rarely visible in these government appointed committees, which is the private and the industry experts participation is equal to the government representative participation. right? This EAC committee is responsible for selecting the incubators on an ongoing basis. And these incubators are then given a grant, which will then be dispersed through these incubators located in different parts of the country to relevant startups. The idea behind doing this was, we as Startup India, we as DPIIT believe that it's impossible for us to map out the requirements of startups hailing in different parts of the country. So it's best to just decentralize the funding mechanism and allow incubators from different parts of the country to come to us, take money from us, and then use their own resources, use their own networks, use their own talents and knowledge to disburse that money further to startups in their own region. Now, that being said, there is absolutely no boundaries on applying to an incubator which does not belong to your region. I'll come to that later, but this is basically how the scheme was envisioned when it was rolled out, right? Now, the presentation that I had prepared is specific to incubators, but in the interest of time, I will try and encapsulate the relevant points for both incubators and startups. And then I'm happy to answer questions and facilitate more interaction as and when I finish the presentation. So call for applications for incubators were opened on 19th April 2021. And they are open on an ongoing basis. Incubators can go to the portal, can make their applications, and once their applications are screened, evaluated, and selected by the EAC, they are given a grant of up to 5 crore rupees, which will be disbursed to them on milestone basis. Now, these milestones are basically to ensure that once an incubator takes money from us, the incubator cannot come back and ask for a second installment unless it has disbursed every single penny that it had received from us in the first installment to the startups, right? And this is ensured through a regular review and a regular participation and interaction between Startup India and incubators, right? So once you apply as an incubator, you get selected, you are granted a fund of, let's say, 5 crore rupees. You can then take that fund and then the incubator starts screening the applications for startups. So our portal is designed in such a way that when startups are applying, they will be able to see a list, an updated list of these selected incubators under the scheme. And they will also be able to see every single incubator's area of interest, every single incubator's expertise, every single incubator's profiles, websites, and everything. And that is how startups can also apply on the same portal on an ongoing basis. So this is dynamic to a level whereby every single important stakeholder of the scheme is being updated on a real-time basis, right? So this is how startups application workflow looks like. You as a startup are open to apply. There is a certain ISMC regulated formality that the incubator has to comply, which will evaluate startup applications. I'll come to what this ISMC means in a later part of the presentation. Once a startup is selected by this incubator, the startup can grant a fund of up to 20 lakh or give a debt of up to 50 lakh. And similarly, with respect to incubators, how their performance is to be reviewed by DPIIT and Startup India, startups' performance is also expected to be continuously reviewed by incubators who have given them the money, either in form of the grant or in form of the debt or in form of the convertible debenture. Right? Now, this is, if somebody wants to take a screenshot of the major salient features of the scheme, these are the ones. I'll just go over them very quickly. I've already explained most of these, but a grant of up to 5 crore rupees can be sanctioned for incubators, right? This grant is sanctioned to incubators, and I'm specifically talking to incubators that are present here. This grant will be disbursed to you once you're selected in 3 tranches of 40%, 30%, and 30%. And you can come back and request for a second tranche once you've disbursed the first 40% of the startups. With respect to startups, how this grant will come to your way. Once you apply to the incubators, you get selected by an incubator. You can be given a grant of up to 20 lakhs. And this is ensured in the scheme that if you are selected for a grant, the grant will be disbursed to you in less than 60 days from when you made the application. And I want to highlight one more thing here. When you as a startup apply to 3 incubators under this scheme, your application is going to be reviewed and a decision has to be communicated to you within 45 days. So one major lacuna of government schemes that was very critically raised by certain stakeholders when we are formulating the scheme is money comes, but money doesn't flow to the beneficiaries up until months, up until years. Now, this is not a possibility. This is not an option that we had under this particular scheme where we are targeting these early stage startups, which are in dire need of fund because they want their ideas to shoot and they want their ideas to succeed. So once you make an application, your application will be evaluated in less than 45 days. And if you are selected for a grant, that grant will come to your way in less than 60 days of your application. The timelines with respect to debentures and debt are a little flexible because we know that there are certain agreements that are to be formulated between the incubator and the startup to execute these funding instruments. But that being said, DPIIT and Startup India is consistently monitoring this scheme to ensure that every single funding instrument, if promised to a startup, gets disbursed as soon as possible. Right? So this is the EAC that we have proposed. Now, there are certain changes in this EAC, in this EAC since it was formed way back in April. Certain reshufflings have taken place. But that being said, I want to assure and I want to show you the capability of this EAC, not just in terms of the sheer talent and experience that it packs, but also in terms of the composition of this EAC. So this slide contains 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 members which are going to represent the government of India in the EAC. And these 6 members are going to represent the industry. So we have representation from IVCA, we have representation from Cisco Launchpad, Avana Capital, 9 unicorns. So this is to ensure that the committee is up to date in terms of what is the requirement of the ecosystem. The committee is up to date with respect to what is the demand from an incubator and from a startup in order to take this ecosystem to new heights, right? So a word about this ISMC, but I don't want to highlight the need of this ISMC right now. I want to do this in the form of a Q&A, but this ISMC is one of the most important parts when it comes to incubators. Every incubator, while making their application, has to ensure that they have this ISMC. All of this is given in the guidelines of the scheme, which are publicly available. And I'll be very, very happy to share this presentation with Gautam for further outreach as well. But this ISMC is extremely important to ensure that an incubator is not biased, that an incubator does not give preferential treatment to certain startups which are already under its bucket list. So this ISMC is vetted, is approved by the EAC, and it is this ISMC which is responsible for selecting startups on an ongoing basis. And like the EAC, this ISMC is also supposed to consist of representation from the government, is supposed to consist representation from the academia, from the entrepreneurship ecosystem, and from the incubator management team, right? So this is how the flow of the scheme works. If you as an incubator fulfill the eligibility criteria, you apply with a certain level of details that you're required to put out in your application. We screen your application, we select your application, and then we give you the money. And then that money, once you spend that money as an incubator, you're more than welcome to come back to us and ask for another grant of 5 crore rupees. So there is absolutely nothing static about this scheme. The scheme is being run in a dynamic way on a real-time basis with absolutely no boundaries to what you can achieve as an incubator and as a startup by becoming a part of this scheme. Right? These are certain eligibility criteria, which I don't need to highlight. You as an incubator are more than welcome to go to the scheme guidelines and ensure that you comply with these eligibility criteria for you to become eligible for this scheme. These eligibility criteria for incubators have been designed in a way to keep in mind that we only ensure that a good quality incubator comes our way, because the incubator is one of the most essential part of the scheme, as it is the mediating chain between the government and the startup. So we have this host of requirements from incubators that they should have a very, very good team. They should have a very good track record of funding from the government. They should have a very, very good incubator facilities that they can extend to their startups. And only once you fulfill these eligibility criteria, can you apply for this scheme as an incubator. Right? So all these things I have already covered. Every incubator will be given a 5% additional management fee to disburse the funds to enable due diligence, to conduct legal and consultancy requirements that are needed on the part of the incubator while selecting the startup. So that also has been kept in mind while deciding for fund allocation in this scheme. So if as an incubator you are given 1 crore rupees, you'll be given 5 lakh rupees extra to allow for disbursal of that scheme, right? So these things are just to be kept in mind once you as an incubator decide to apply for this scheme. Similarly, startups also have to fulfill certain eligibility criteria. 3 major eligibility criteria I want to highlight before I close my presentation. The startup should be a DPIIT recognized startup. It is a fairly simple and free of cost process that you can apply for by visiting startupindia.gov.in. It should not be incorporated more than 2 years ago. This requirement is kept in mind. Is kept while keeping in mind the fact that we want to support early stage startups. We want to support startups that have a very good potential in terms of their ideas, but are not able to sustain themselves because they're new entrants in the market, right? And the third important eligibility criteria for startups is that you should be using a technology component in any part of your product or service that you're offering. Right? And the fourth important eligibility criteria is that you as a startup should not have received more than 10 lakh worth of monetary benefits from any government state, from any central or state government schemes. This is done to ensure that the same cycle or the same pool of startups don't just keep getting recycled in our funding allocation process, and we keep getting a pool of new startups every year. Right. So with this, I will end my presentation. These things are all present in the guidelines that can be accessed from this link. But you can access these guidelines from just Googling Startup India Seed Fund Scheme guidelines. These guidelines are kept in are framed while keeping in mind that every potential stakeholder can access these guidelines and decide for themselves if they are ready to become a part of this scheme. With this, I will end my presentation, and I would now invite Gautam or Evan or both of them to just throw questions at me, because I'm sure there will be many. I can already see some questions in the chat.
Absolutely, Anubhav. So I'll probably take these questions one after the other for you.
Sure.
So we'll probably go from the incubator side, because I've been receiving a lot of questions from my friends who run incubators. So the first question for you is around the expert assessment committee. Maybe you can move to the slide that shows the EAC.
Sure.
So they just want to understand the process, because when they submit or they prepare to submit, right, something at the top of their mind is what really happens in the EAC. Now, of course, the EAC has their own internal mechanism, but if you can just run them through at a high level with publicly available data in terms of what happens. Do they take does the EAC meet once a month, once a quarter? How do you take these applications in batches? Is it rolling, or do you take once a quarter and approve? And what are some of the, of course, apart from the criteria that is mentioned, are there any other subjective criteria that is also picked up, to differentiate between, let's say, 10 incubators that have come up, right? So if you can just run us through the process, it will be, really helpful for incubators to prepare better.
All right. So I'll begin with the basics. As of right now, we have selected 25 incubators under this scheme. And with respect to how the selection has taken place, there have been around half a dozen EAC meetings in which these 25 incubators have been selected. Now, what happens is once you apply as an incubator, your application is logged in the portal, and we screen the application to make sure that the incubator is fulfilling the eligibility criteria for this scheme. We do not screen at Startup India or DPIIT or Ministry of Commerce Industry. Nobody is responsible for evaluating an application other than ESC. We just make sure that the application is in compliance with the eligibility criteria, and every single incubator application that is eligible, that is found eligible on the publicly displayed evaluation eligibility criteria, is brought in front of the ESC. Now, ESC effectively meets twice a month. Now, this timeline may change for more or fewer meetings depending upon the availability of eligible incubator applications at that time. But as of right now, the objective is that the ESC is going to meet at least twice a month to evaluate howsoever many number of completed applications are present on the portal as of that date. Now, once we convene an ESC meeting, we inform the ESC committee, we inform the ESC members that, let's say, 5 applications are complete for to be reviewed by you. All those 5 incubators will be invited. All those incubator teams will be invited to make a very short presentation of about, say, 5 to 10 minutes in front of the ESC, post which the ESC is going to ask you a couple of follow-up questions with respect to what do you intend to do with this money, what have been your success stories, how do you intend to implement this seed fund, and what is your fund deployment plan. Remind you, all of these information ESC already goes through from the portal that you filled in the application form. We are collecting all these details in the application form. And once the ESC is satisfied with the answer that the incubator team gives, the ESC decides on selecting or rejecting. And if selected, then the ESC decides the quantum of fund that the incubator should be supported.
So I have another follow-up question for that. So if once an incubator got rejected an application, whether they can submit the application again after?
Yes. If rejected, you can submit a fresh application after 3 months. This buffer is given to ensure that the incubator works on the feedback that the ESC gave or something that the incubator might have found lacking in their team. And they can always come back and apply again after 3 months.
Anubhav, because you mentioned that, so when you communicate to an incubator on the rejection, potentially it could have happened in 2 ways. One, they could have been rejected at the eligibility screening itself by the Startup India team, right? Because they haven't submitted, say, XYZ documents, or there is a particular criteria they haven't fulfilled. Or they may have been invited to present in front of the ESC, and the ESC has decided not to go ahead with that, right?
Correct.
So what is the process that you follow in communicating the update to the incubators? And do you share that feedback with them on why it got rejected?
Okay, so I'll answer the first part of the question by saying we almost never reject an incubator because they have not filed sufficient documents with us. We always go back to them. I head the screening committee at Startup India, and I always make sure that once an incubator application comes to us, we screen it as thoroughly as possible. We pinpoint what is lacking in that application in terms of making it eligible for the scheme. So let's say if some account annual audited reports are not up to date. Let's say if the incubator has filled in some data incorrectly, we always go back to the incubator and we ask them to correct it as soon as possible so that they become eligible for this scheme. If somebody is proven to be ineligible with some fundamental criteria, so let's say if the incubator, so let's say one eligibility criteria is that the incubator should have been operational for at least 2 years at the time of application. If the incubator is not eligible on that criteria, then we communicate to them saying that you're not eligible at this point because you're not functional for 2 years. So the rejection almost never happens at the screening stage because we believe that we have a very, very good incubator ecosystem, and every single incubator, most of the incubators, if not all, are capable of applying for this scheme. If a rejection happens at the ESC evaluation stage, then it communicates to the incubator with this rejection decision. And if the incubator so demands, we provide them with whatever reasons and rationale that the ESC had decided while rejecting them. Now, this is done to ensure that a feedback is given and the incubator can always come back and apply after 3 months, cooling period.
And another question for you. So far, how many incubators have roughly received the approval or have been selected? And what are some of the top learnings so far? Because I think it's about 3 months for you, for your team, when the applications have been starting to get evaluated. So what are the top 3 learnings for you? Either that, these are 3 things that the incubators should not do because these are the patterns why incubators are not making it, or these are a few things that is common with incubators that are getting some best practice, right? So
Correct.
you can either highlight a best practice or you can highlight something that are common mistakes, and you can also tell us how many incubators so far have got it.
All right. So I will prefix my answer with a suggestion that the list of selected incubators, there are 25 incubators that have been selected as on date under this scheme. The portfolio of all the incubators is available publicly on the Seed Fund website. There's a portfolio section. I would urge every single incubator who can, every single incubator who wants to reach out to these incubators, and I'm sure these incubators would be more than happy to help or guide you through this application process that they so have successfully completed. That being said, we have received about more than 100 applications for incubators till now. And in about half a dozen EAC meetings that have happened, I can share 4 or 5 best practices that these selected incubators were able to exhibit in their presentation and in their application likewise. One is, please ensure that you have a very capable team. A very capable team is absolutely important because the EAC realizes that there are thousands of startups waiting to apply for this scheme. We have received, as on date, I was checking in the morning, I've not checked it since, but we had 994 startup applications till now. And this is going to keep on piling up for the next 3 or 4 years. So the EAC is very well aware of the fact that the incubators are going to receive applications en masse. So please ensure that you have a very, very good team to screen that. Please ensure that you have very good success stories to present to the EAC. You have good success stories in your kitty in terms of the startups that you have incubated, in terms of the performance of your startups. Please ensure that you comply with the ISMC that is currently displayed in the screen. Please ensure that you comply, and we at Startup India will provide you with every possible help that we can in ensuring that you comply with this. But please ensure that this committee is present and you have very good ISMC members in your in your incubator management committee. And the last best practice that I can share is please convince the EAC that you intend to support these early stage startups. Please show to the EAC, please show it in your application, please show it in your presentation that you are committed to support startups from not just the Bangalore's and the Hyderabad's and the Bombay's and the Delhi's of India, but also from the hinterlands, also from the extreme north, extreme south, extreme east, and extreme western parts of India. Because one of the objectives of this scheme, the 945 crore allocation that has happened, one of the objectives and the aims of this scheme is that every single district of this country should have a successful startup and a successful story to tell. So if you follow these set of best practices, I believe you stand a very good chance of getting selected under this scheme.
Thanks, Etan, for that, Anubhav. So I think that was very helpful. And
So, I have a follow-up question for that. So how many incubator applications we have received till now for selecting this 25?
We've received about 110 odd applications. We've not taken all of these to the EAC because all of these are not complete as per the eligibility criteria. We are still screening them. So once an application comes to us, we start screening them and then we get back to the incubator. So submitted applications are about 110, 120.
So Anubhav, as a follow-up to that, out of the 110, I'm sure many of them you haven't even taken to EAC in the first attempt. You would have taken it, you would have given, your team would have spent some time reviewing it, taking it back to the incubator. What were some of the reasons or some of the misses from the incubators? Because I'm sure there was a pattern saying, saying they forgot to attach something, or probably the ISMC was not complete, right? So what were some of the top reasons that allowed your team to go back to the incubator and asking them to get that filled up again?
Yeah. So it's funny that you should ask it. I have spent all my mornings calling up about 5 to 6 incubators who are very close to completion, and I want to get their applications through to the next EAC. And almost all of those 6 incubator applications have committed some mistakes in the Excel part. So as a part of the application, you're supposed to fill out an Excel sheet. The Excel is meant to collect some data about how your incubator management has functioned over the last 3 years. How many startups have graduated from you? How many of your startups have raised investments? And all of these data is captured in the Excel sheet. Please make sure that you fill out that Excel sheet in the best way possible without committing without committing many mistakes. That is one. Second, you yourself mentioned, please ensure that the ISMC is in place and it has representation from all of these. It should have a member from academia, from venture capital, 2 successful entrepreneurs, and a state government representative, uh, an incubator chairman, and any other stakeholder, right? So this is 2. Third is, please ensure that you fill out the letter of authorization and the self-declarations that you are supposed to submit as a part of the application correctly. They should be on your incubator letterhead. They should have the stamp and the seal of your incubator entity. Every single startup agreement. So you're supposed to submit at least 5 startup agreements with your application if you are government assisted, and 10 startup agreements if you're not government assisted. Please ensure that all of these are proper on a proper letterhead, contain the date, name of the incubator of the startup, and contain the stamp of the incubator at least. Because all of these fall under the criteria of due diligence, which we absolutely cannot do without. So we have incubators, very, very big incubators. I'm not going to take names, but very big incubators in this country come to us and tell us that, oh, you don't know how good we are. Why are you forcing us with these due diligence formalities and all? Absolutely no scope of any laxity there. And that is where I find most of the incubator applications lacking. But I am also seeing some incubators being extremely proactive in seeking assistance. Okay, we are not able to do this. Please tell us how can we do it. So we are always there to help. My team is always there to help. And provided you are also proactive in terms of filling out whatever is needed in your application.
Perfect. So I think that definitely answers the question, Anubhav. So is there any final thoughts that you would have for the incubators before we go into a couple of questions on the startup side? Any final thoughts for the incubators?
Yeah, just that we have received applications from some very good incubators, but I'm extremely sure that with the kind of ecosystem that we have, we still haven't received applications from a lot of good incubators. So I'm awaiting applications from all the incubators that are present here and are not. Please apply for this scheme. If you fulfill the eligibility criteria, Startup India will ensure, and I will ensure that you go in front of the EAC. And if you deserve it, you will get a very, very handsome grant, which you will be able to disburse to startups and also be able to add to your portfolio. So you cannot use the money for your own facility creation, but the fact that you've been assisted with a 5 crore, 10 crore grant from the government, and who knows, you may have, with the help of this scheme, you may have the next unicorn in your kitty.
So, and Anubhav, one final question.
Yeah.
So I will definitely be connecting you to a bunch of incubators who've been pinging me, requesting a connect to you. So I will be connecting them to you on mail. But before that, because we also interact very closely with a lot of incubators in tier 2, tier 3 states. This is more of a question on behalf of all my incubator friends from the smaller states or the non-metros. How does the EAC, give weightage to some of the relatively newer incubators that are being set up over the last few years in tier 2, tier 3 states? Because there's been a lot of efforts from Startup India in encouraging the state startup cells to go ahead and encourage incubation ecosystems. In fact, the state ranking frameworks pushed a lot of states to do that, and also the other agencies like Atal Innovation Mission, MeitY, they've been instrumental in setting up incubators in the last 2-3 years. So we've been seeing a lot of new incubators in the last couple of years, especially in the non-metros, especially in emerging states. It could be Northeast, it could be Central India, is the EAC, how are they weighing them on par with some of the more established incubators? Because, not taking names, but some of the IIT IIM driven incubators will obviously have more maturity in terms of, the team that runs it, the number of startups they have, the kind of mentors they've built. It's a lot more, I would say, functional. Whereas a lot of smaller states where the incubators are probably few years into operations are the ones who probably need a lot more support from a scheme like this. Is there some kind of guidance or weightage that the EAC is currently having in mind for the incubators from tier 2, tier 3 states?
So I'll take a two-pronged way to answer this question. Okay. One is I will let the EAC speak for itself. So all these institutions that you've named, MIT, NITI Aayog, all these institutions are being represented in the EAC. And these representatives, we have the mission director, Dr. Chintan Vaishnav in our EAC right now. He is extremely sympathetic to the cause of developing a very, very good ecosystem in tier 2, tier 3 cities in terms of incubators. So I will let the EAC speak for itself in the sense that every single member of the EAC is aware of the fact that tier 2, tier 3 cities and the incubators that belong to them need separate push, need an extra push. So that is always a part of the evaluation. That is always a part of the judgment that the EAC makes. So much so that some incubators have been selected solely because they showed promise. They showed promise. They didn't get selected just because they were from tier 2, tier 3 cities, but they showed promise in terms of willing to expand the startup ecosystem in their own region, right? So we've had incubators from Ryzen, from Ryzen Madhya Pradesh, from Anantapur, Andhra Pradesh, who were selected because they showed very, very good promise in terms of their ability and in terms of their intent to get selected under this scheme and to help startups in these tier 2, tier 3 cities. That is one. Second is the funds under this scheme are not getting allocated as a zero-sum game. So it's not that the same funds are being competed for by an IIT or by a tier 3 city incubator. There is absolutely no lack of funds, so to speak. So if an IIT is capable of getting selected, and if you say that it stands a higher chance of getting selected, that has absolutely nothing to do with, or that is absolutely in no way going to damage the chance of a tier 2, tier 3 city incubator. So you as a tier 2, tier 3 or tier 1 city incubator are going to get evaluated solely as per your own intentions, your own capabilities and your own promises to the scheme. So there is absolutely no zero-sum game that is happening whereby we are making an incubator from tier 2 city compete with an IIM or an IIM. So that is, that is how I would like to sort of answer this question.
Totally fine. So maybe what we will do, Anubhav, is quickly move to the questions from the startup side.
Sure.
Right. So are there a couple of quick thoughts that you will have? Because I think something that still needs a bit more clarity for the startups on this call, because the questions is startups apply directly on your portal, but there are incubators. Should the startup be incubated with an incubator to apply for the scheme? How
Absolutely.
does it happen? So if you can just run us through the flow, it will be good.
Correct. So as a startup, you do not have to fulfill any other requirement other than what is given in the eligibility criteria. If you are a DPIIT recognized startup, if you are less than 2 years old, and if you are if you're DPIIT recognized, already checks a lot of other things, right? That Ipsita, my friend who's also present here, looks after recognition process. So that already ensures that you are incorporated or you are instituted formally in the eyes of the law. And as long as you are recognized by DPIIT and you're not more than 2 years old, you are eligible to apply for this scheme. You can use the portal to log in, make your application. The application process is extremely smooth. You are supposed to fill out a form. You're supposed to upload a bunch of documents in support of your application. And as a part of the scheme, you will get to select 3 incubators according to your preference. So when you are filling out an application, you will be shown a list of incubators that are present under the scheme on that particular date. And from that list of incubators, you can choose, I want to be incubated with this particular incubator. This is my second preferred incubator. This is my third preferred incubator. And your application will go to all these 3 incubators without these incubators knowing that they have received, other 2 have received your application. So incubator 1 will evaluate your application in its own criteria, in its own capability and merit, without knowing that it has been listed as incubator 1, 2, or 3, and without knowing which other 2 incubators have received your application. And we've done this to ensure that a startup is evaluated not by 1, but 3 incubators, so that if either of them finds your application, finds your idea viable, you can be funded by either of the 3. And let us suppose if all 3 select you, you will be attached to your first preferred incubator. So that is how the selection process for startups takes place under this scheme. Second thing is, please make sure that you fill out the application form to the best of your ability. The application form consists of a set of questions which requires you to list down your idea, market size of your idea, what is your vision, what is the vision of your startup, and all those things. Please make sure that you, like any application form, you fill out this application form very diligently. This will enable the incubators to evaluate your application and take it to their ISMC if they find your idea viable. The third thing that I would like to highlight is, as a startup, even if you get rejected, even if, let's say, you are getting rejected by all 3 preferences that you had listed down in your application, you can come back and apply again at the end of 3 months. So there is a 3-month waiting period, just as in the case of incubators, in the case of startups also, there's a 3-month waiting period during which you can refine your application, you can do something to better your idea, and then you can come back and apply to a probably larger pool of incubators, because this pool of incubators that is available for startups to prefer is getting larger every single month. In every single EAC meeting, we are selecting a couple of incubators. So after 3 months, you'll have a larger pool of incubator to select from. So I guess this is the basic 101 that I've given for startup application. If there are any other questions regarding any specific point, I'll be happy.
So one of the questions is, can a startup, so how does the incubator pick? How does an incubator pick and process it? Will there be a case where multiple incubators pick and process the same set of startups and end up awarding it to the same set of startups? How are we controlling that?
Constantly happening. That is done to ensure that a startup application gets chance to be evaluated from 3 incubators. So once you apply, you will be reverted with a decision on an application at the end of 45th day. So it takes 45 days for all 3 incubators in a combined way to evaluate, and at the end of 45th day, a decision will be taken. The system will run a check basis on what the incubator decisions have been for all these 3 cases. And if the startup has been selected by preference 1, it will automatically be attached to preference 1. If 1 rejects, 2 selects, it will go to 2. If 2 rejects, 3 selects, it will go to 3rd. If all of them select, it will go to 1. If all of them reject, the startup application will be rejected. But all of this will be done within 45 days of your application.
Got that. And there are a few more questions that have come up with.
Sure.
One question is on the DPEIIT registration part, right?
Mm-hmm.
So can you quickly just take a minute, because there are some startups that are very new, in the last 6 months they've been set up. Can you take a minute on just the, should the incubator, there are 2 parts. One is, how important is the registration on the DPEIIT portal? You did mention it's mandatory. The second part is, again, there's this confusion on, should I only apply to a particular incubator, or can I apply to all incubators as a startup? Or is there a central way of applying directly to Startup India, and the incubators get to pick from a central pool? The startup doesn't have to worry about which incubator reaches out to them, as long as it's part of the CC fund scheme. If you can just throw some final clarity on that.
Okay. So I'll try my best to give you as much clarity as I can, but it's really not my place. And given that my presentation is going to be followed by Ipsita, who is actually a part of the recognition committee. So Ipsita will also be throwing some light on the recognition process, but I will just quickly run through it. So there are two things. One is, let's say you as a startup want to apply for a DPIIT recognition. The way to do that is to go at startupindia.gov.in, create an account for yourself, and then use that account to file a recognition application. So a recognition application is a completely different thing from the seed fund scheme. This recognition applications are being processed for about 5-6 years now. And we have a set of about 50 to 53,000, Ipsita can give the exact numbers, but about 50 to 53,000 recognized startups all over the country. Now, this recognition application is not just solely for the purpose of seed fund scheme. Being a DPIIT recognized startup has a host of other benefits. One of which is that you will be able to apply for the seed fund scheme. Right? Other benefits include the session that is going to follow my session, which is you'll be able to apply for exemptions, you'll be able to apply for tax benefits and all those things. So that recognition process is a completely different process and a prerequisite to applying for the Startup India seed fund scheme. You can do that by visiting the startupindia.gov.in Startup India website. Once you have your recognition certificate, once you are a DPIIT recognized startup, you will be assigned a DIPP number. And with that, you don't have to do anything with that number. With your Startup India login credential that you had created while applying for recognition, you can apply for the seed fund scheme at the seed fund portal. So when you log in with your ID and password on the seed fund portal, you will automatically be able to see the details that you had filled out while applying for recognition application. So the seed fund application will automatically fetch data for all the startups that are DPIIT recognized. And if you are not a DPIIT recognized startup, it will not let you proceed with the application. The data will not be fetched automatically, and you will not be allowed to proceed with the application. So please make sure that you are a DPIIT recognized startup. We have a very, very robust ecosystem now throughout the country with several stakeholders ready to guide you on how to go about this recognition process. You will definitely have a lot of startups. There are about 50 to 53,000 startups all over the country. You will find somebody in your vicinity to guide you through this process. And even if you don't find, please write to us and we will guide you. We will guide you. There's absolutely no money involved in this application. You will find advocates sitting in court campuses. I've personally been approached by several startups saying that this particular advocate is asking for 5,000 rupees, 10,000 rupees for recognition application. It is absolutely free of cost. There's absolutely no money involved. You have to fill out an application. That application again asks you to list down certain answers about your startup, what your idea is. It requires you to fulfill certain eligibility criteria. You should be incorporated. You should have some government entity in the eyes of the law, and you will be recognized. Once you are recognized and you are not more than 2 years old, you will be able to apply for seed fund scheme. That is a separate process.
That's perfect, Anubhav. Thank you so much. I think we've almost taken most of the questions, and some of the questions can be taken up in the next session with Ipsita as well. And
Yes.
and just to answer one of the questions, there is absolutely no restriction in the sectors when it comes to the seed fund scheme, right, Anubhav?
It is a sector agnostic scheme. It is a sector agnostic scheme. And just to give you one additional point, the moment EAC selects an incubator, EAC very specifically instructs that incubator that we know that you have some sectoral interest and you will be performing in certain specialized sectors. But for the purpose of this scheme, please be as accommodative as you can, because this is a sector agnostic scheme. Best to pull in incubators from every possible sector that there is. But as a startup, you don't need to worry about which sector you're from. You will see the application, you will see a list of incubators, you will see the portfolio, whichever incubator you find to be best aligned with your sector, region, or whatever interests you, you can select those 3 incubators.
Perfect. Sounds good. So, Anubhav, what we'll do is there are a lot of people reaching out to us as well. Any incubators that have been reaching out to us, we will connect them to you. Any incubators that are looking, who've been pinging us, you can channelize your questions to incubators@headstart.in. We will go ahead and just connect you to Anubhav and help you take it forward. And perfect. So thank you so much, Anubhav. It was really helpful in answering some of these questions, right? Because these are very small things, but these small things are what really differentiates between an incubator that quickly gets its time in front of the AC versus the application that goes back to, making corrections, right? So thank you so much for your time. And now I would love to invite Ipshita, to join us. Ipshita, if you're around, can you say a hi?
Hi, Gautam. Thank you so much, Anubhav. It was a great.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ipshita. And this is exactly what I was just telling Anupam. Very, very, very helpful. For him to have been so patient in answering a lot of these questions that kept coming our way, right? Because today we've had a lot of incubator CEOs and program heads who are very keen to get the seed fund for their incubators. At the same time, they're very keen to understand on behalf of many of their startups so that they can go and convey these insights to their startups in micro sessions, right? So, and that's exactly what we would look to do with you as well, Ipshita, because the tax exemptions and the other benefits from the Startup India side is again something that all of us know, but we've never gone into its depth, right? Because unfortunately, a lot of us run away from the word tax, right? So I shouldn't say that because I'm a CA, but all of us run away when we say tax, accounting, finance, especially as founders. We are happier when a CA just handles it and tells us what to do, right? So I think it will be very helpful, for us to know from you in terms of, what exactly are some of the recognitions that are very important while applying for the various schemes of DPIIT, and what are some of the tax exemptions? Of course, I know at a high level there is a tax exemption at the income tax side, and there is also a tax exemption on the capital gain side or the valuation over fair value. So if you can, probably run us, and for the benefit of everyone, Ipshita comes with a background of being on the other side as well. Prior to her stint in Invest India, she's also been a part of very fast growth startups, helping them scale. I'm very sure she probably empathizes a lot more with startups because of her stint prior to Invest India. So, Ipshita, having come from both sides, it'll be great for you to run us through the basics. Though most of us, the 53 of us on the sessions, have all been in the ecosystem, assume that we would love to understand or unlearn and relearn whatever you're saying, so that we can communicate it back to the startups that we incubate.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Gautam. And yes, I do understand both the sides of the coin here. And being from the other side, I know how important it is to be perfect in terms of your regulatory aspects and in terms of all the legal and financial aspects. So it's very important for any startup to be perfect on these pieces to grow and scale in the long term. Because of course, as the startup grows, more and more complications come in, and more you'll have to get in detail of each and everything. So I'll be telling about the process of DPIIT recognition and a few tax exemptions that are provided to the startups. So so basically, the first step to anything, to get any of the government related public sector funding, or like as Anubhav mentioned, let's say the seed fund scheme, seed fund from the government, or any sort of tax exemptions, the first step is to get recognized by DPIIT. And it's a really fairly simple and easy process that any startup can do by themselves and have to do by themselves, of course. So you just have to go to the Startup India website, and there's this you'll have to file for your recognition. Currently, we have more than, at this point, 54,000 plus startups recognized with us, and the process started 5 years back. And coming to the process, it is a fairly simple process. Any entity type, either private limited or LLP or a registered partnership can apply for recognition by DPIIT. But the startup has the definition of the startup says that the entity has to be cannot be incorporated prior to 10 years from the date when they are applying for recognition. So, and then the turnover should not be exceeding more than 100 crore in any fiscal year. And of course, they should work towards the innovation part and the scalability part and improvement of any of the products or services that they are providing. And so coming to the benefits of recognition, it's the first step. You will be a startup. You will come under the definition of the startup of the Indian government, and then you can apply for IPR benefits, intellectual property right benefits. You can apply for relaxations in public procurement norms. You can apply for self-certification under labor and environment laws. You can apply for the fund of funds for startups and the seed fund scheme, as explained by Anubhav very well. We have other benefits related to the tax exemptions under Section 80 ISC of the Income Tax Act, which exempts the startup to pay any sort of income tax for 3 consecutive years from the date when they have got this exemption, from the date when this exemption has been approved for them. Then they can, of course, apply for exemption of investment exemption, basically tax exemption on investment over the fair market value. And this also comes after you have been recognized. So the first step to anything is getting recognized, and it's a fairly simple process. If the person who's filling the form knows the startup, knows how the startup is working and what are they working towards, it's really simple. You just have to provide your incorporation certificate. You have to answer simple questions like what is the startup exactly doing, what is the problem that the startup is solving, how is the startup solving that particular problem, what is the USP of the startup, and how is the startup earning revenue. So these are the 4 basic questions that the startup has to answer, and they have to, of course, provide details in terms of how they are scalable. So these are like, you have to provide very brief answers to this, and our team goes through each and every application, and we read the application, and then either it is approved or it is marked incomplete with specific comments on why is it being marked incomplete, what is lacking in your application. And of course, after being marked incomplete, the startup can apply again, and they can apply for a maximum of 3 times after being marked incomplete. So this is how the recognition process looks like. The applications are processed. It's a fairly quick process. The applications are processed within 3 to 4 working days, and the startup can apply up to 3 times, as I just informed you. And this is how the process looks like. First, you have to just fill an online form and provide documents. So the documents, of course, this form also asks what stage is the startup currently in. It can be ideation if it's just starting up. It can be validation, can be early traction or scaling. Then you have to provide pitch decks, videos, or website link as per the stage. So a fairly early stage like ideation does not require any sort of proof of concept, but a startup in probably the scaling stage would require a pitch deck explaining about your business model. So, and then applications are evaluated after the documents are viewed, and then recognition certificate is issued if the application is deemed to be fit, or if not fit, they are sent incomplete comments, and then the startup can apply again with relevant clarifications or documents that are missing. So this sums up the recognition process. Any questions here, Gautam? Otherwise, I'll take on to the next step of tax exemptions, which is a fairly detailed process as compared to the recognition.
I think you can move ahead to the next, and we can club the questions together.
Sure, perfect. So coming to the first exemption, first sort of tax exemption, it is the income tax exemption under Section 80 ISC of the Income Tax Act. The first step is the startup has to be recognized, but the difference here is only the private limited and the LLPs can apply for the tax exemption here. Registered partnerships are currently not allowed for tax exemptions. Then, of course, the startup here, the startup, since this was launched afterwards, the startup has to be incorporated on or after 1st April 2016. And then then the startup, if they are their application is approved, they are provided with income tax exemption for 3 consecutive years out of the 10 years of incorporation. The process here is a bit detailed. It goes through 3 levels. First of all, the application is submitted on the Startup India portal, startupindia.gov.in. After your startup is recognized, you have to use the same portal to apply for this particular exemption. You have to provide various documents. Here, you have to provide your annual financials for the past 3 consecutive years. And these financials, of course, have to be audited. You have to provide the income tax, the ITR acknowledgement, as you may say. And then you have to provide the memorandum of association, and you have to provide a detailed pitch deck and a video telling about what the startup does, what's the product or the service, and what's the business model altogether. Then the Startup India team, this is submitted on the portal. Then there's a first level document check that is done by our team, and then the application is sent to a technical agency. The technical agency then reviews the application again, bases the legalities, innovativeness, and the scalabilities. And then the technical agency will again forward the application if the application is deemed fit to the board, the interministerial board. It is a DPIIT. It is a board under DPIIT, and all the applications are presented to DPIIT, and the board then takes a call on which startup is to be given the exemption and which startup is not to be given the exemption. And at each stage, so these are 3 stages: first the first level document check, then the technical agency, the review by the technical agency, and then the board. So at each stage, either the application will pass through or the application will be marked incomplete basis if something is missing or if some more information is required. So that can be done, and by the technical agency or the board, the application can be marked rejected if not deemed fit. So, and the application, this whole process takes approximately 90 days, and the applications are usually processed within 90 days. So yes, this sums up the exemptions exemption of income tax under Section 80 ISC. The second type of tax exemption that we will be talking about is the exemption on investments above the fair market value of the startup. So if the startup has raised funding above the fair market value, then they can apply for tax exemptions. And so here it's a really simple process. It's even a more easier process than I would say the income tax exemption. It is again, the first step to this would also be recognition by DPIIT. You have to be recognized to apply for this. Here you again, the process is on the startupindia.gov.in. You have to go there, and then you have to submit the application. The application is fairly simple. All the information is pulled out from your recognition application, and then you have to just submit a 1-pager declaration. The format is also provided, and the declaration basically says that the amount that has been raised above the fair market value will not be used to purchase any sort of personal assets. So this is a 1-pager declaration that is to be submitted by the startup filing for this particular tax exemption. Then the eligibility is just as that the startup has to be recognized, and then they have to file for this on the Startup India website with the declaration. This is a fairly simple process, and this is under the Section 56 and Form 2 to DPIIT. This is a fairly easy process, and here it sums up the 2 types of tax exemptions that any startup can apply, can get after being recognized by DPIIT. Of course, it has a lot of other benefits, as I told you in the beginning. So Yes, open to you, Gautam.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ipshita. And I think a bunch of questions have come our way. One is on the the age of the startups that you had mentioned, right? So one was it shouldn't be more than 10 years. So you also did mention about the kind of entities, or it can be an LLP, it can be a private limited. So I think there was a question on that in terms of what are the various schemes that also accept this? Because if a startup, this is basically a private limited LLP, and the registered partnership is accepted for the DPIIT recognition. But one of the questions is more based on, I think, the seed fund scheme. Does it also accept the same entity type, or should they look at each schemes separately on what is the the criteria for that particular scheme, and then look at it?
So for the seed fund scheme, I will hand it over to Anubhav, but answering about other exemptions. So a startup, if it's a private limited company, if it's an LLP, or if it's a registered partnership, they can get recognized. They can apply for recognition, they can get recognized. But let's say they have to get an income tax exemption. Then a registered partnership is currently not being considered. Only the private limited and the LLPs are being considered. So that is again in picture. I think for the seed fund scheme, Anubhav can inform us a bit better here.
So for seed fund scheme, the blanket criteria is that the startup should be a DPIIT recognized startup. So as long as you are a DPIIT recognized startup, seed fund scheme doesn't label you as a private limited or a partnership. So every single startup which is eligible for getting recognized by DPIIT is eligible automatically for seed fund scheme.
Okay, then that's perfect. Then it's one of the 3 conditions that has been listed on the slide here. So Ipshita, another question for you. This is very specific to the kind of entities. Have you also seen, impact ventures that could be for profit or could also be registered as a non-profit end up registering for DPIIT recognition? Have you seen non-profit startups
Yes.
that are building for the impact side also get themselves DPIIT registered? If yes, why do you think, what are some of the benefits for a non-profit startup to register?
Okay, so yes, of course, like as I mentioned, you can get exemptions. Of course, exemptions are there on the income tax. Then ventures, if they want to apply for any sort of public procurement thing, then they will get relaxations there. So this could be a huge advantage for them. That this is one thing that is there. And of course, it lets you exit faster also. This helps in faster exits of the startup. So of course, I hope the startup doesn't exit, but if in case it has to get to that stage, then it's easier for the non-profit venture as well.
Gautam, if I may add there. You mentioned about the not-for-profit entities. So we recognize the not-for-profit entities, and we can allow those, and we consider them under our eligibility criteria.
Okay, perfect. Sounds good. I think that's a question for many incubators as well, because many of them have started incubating impact ventures. So Sanjeev, you had a question for the Startup India team.
Yeah, hi Gautam. My question is fairly generic as well. As an incubator, we keep on getting startups of various kinds, and some of them are a bit smart actually. So what happens is that so there is a kind of an old organization, and because they want to take the benefit of the startups offered by the government, so they form a new organization or a new entity, and then transfer the technology from the previous organization and the customers from the previous organization into this one. So do you think without the development being done, or with the purchase of the technology being done from their own parent organization, will that be treated as a startup, or that will not be, or will that be in kind of embark on that? That's my first question. So probably you can answer that first.
Okay, Ipsita, maybe I can take this up.
Sure, Atik.
So, Dr. Sanjeev, thank you for your question. Here, I would like to, mention that the DPIIT has issued certain guidelines for startups, and if this, the startup in question follows those guidelines, then definitely they can get recognized. Quoting one of the guidelines here, that the startup should not have been formed as a result of merger, amalgamation, demerger.
I don't think I'm mentioning around here amalgamation or merger or demerger. It is just that the technology is being transferred from the previous organization into a new skin, and therefore it becomes a startup.
So just in this case, you just have to ensure that it is not a reconstruction or splitting up of an existing entity, and rest is fine.
Okay, and now secondly, to convert, I mean, if an organization has had some kind of legacy, say 3 years back, that was a partnership organization or a proprietorship organization, and now they want to convert that into a private limited organization. So what they normally do is buy the asset and the liabilities into a new company, by virtue of which the asset and the liabilities get transferred into the new company with exactly the same shareholding or whatever the pattern is. Now, my question around here is that will that be again some kind of a problem in terms of treating it as a startup or not?
In terms of conversion, so conversion from one form to another is not a problem till the time the entity fulfills the Section 80 IAC of the Income Tax Act. So it's not a problem then. I hope that answers your question. And you are talking about a conversion from LLP to private limited, right?
Yes.
Yeah. That is not an issue, and we would definitely require certain documents, in terms of the conversion document and the proof of concept, the proof at MCA what is available, and if you follow the ATIC criteria, this conversion is not a problem.
Great, thanks for your help.
Thank you so much.
Perfect. So thanks a lot, Ati, for that. I have a quick question that I want to take from the folks here. What were some of the top, mistakes that you've been seeing in, when a startup applies for the exemption and it doesn't get through? What were some of the mistakes that you had seen from the startup side that are usually the case for the rejection?
Hi, Gautam. I'll be happy to take this question. So if the startup has applied for, say, recognition or ATIC tax exemption or Section 56, I think the blanket advice that I would give to the applicants is that to comply with the requirements in the form. So there are a lot of requirements. Say if I talk about recognition form, stage-wise requirement is there, as in if it's early stage, if it's a startup which is in the ideation stage, only the incorporation certificate along with the authorization letter would suffice. But if it's like a more advanced stage, then POC is required. Again, for ATIC, we require financials. Financial documents are required, POC is required, MOA is required. So in order to sort of submit a strong application, it's necessary that these startups comply with the requirements. And as and when the team requires any further documentation, we also communicate this to these startups in the authorized email IDs. So it's best if the startup, sort of comply with the incomplete comments as well. And post that, for different application process, say for ATIC, we do have a independent agency as well to further evaluate the cases. At next level, there is entity like these who takes the final call basis innovation and certain other parameters. So that we cannot comment on, but at our levels, what we can really advise is that comply with the application process. And we also do, intimate these startups at all levels, what all is required.
Got that. Thank you so much, Nazia, for that. And we've also got a quick question from someone. If one of you can also post the link to the FAQ page, or the page where the applications for this happens, for the tax exemption, it'll be great. So a bunch of startups who are on the call can quickly take a look at the website and also try it out as we speak. So one of you from the Startup India team, if you can post the link on chat on what is the website they'll have to head towards to check out the application for the tax exemption.
Sure, Gautam will post that.
Perfect. And just a quick thought, something that we haven't covered in probably too much in terms of questions, is around the other aspect of tax exemption, which is on the capital gains. Maybe Ipshita, Nazia, if you can probably just throw some light on the background to it. Why was it brought? And if you can just explain to our folks with an example of how does the exemption really work, right? It'll be great to it's more of a 101 explaining in layman terms on how was it before the exemption, how was it after the exemption.
So Gautam, you're talking about the exemption on investments above fair market value?
Exactly.
Okay. So quickly telling you about that, the eligibility criteria for that is, as Ipsita mentioned, any amount above the fair market value, any share that the startup received at a premium value was earlier charged by the income tax department at a tax rate of 30%. That was a problem. So considering that, this exemption was introduced, and now if any startup raises an investment up to 25 crores and applies for this exemption, then they easily get it, provided all the application is complete and they comply with all the self-declarations. So there are certain self-declarations in place that the startup should not invest that amount in any of the jewelry or the stocks. So, if provided they do that, they can simply apply and, get that exemption. Of course, it depends on CBDT, Department of Revenue, when they, in terms of the further criteria that they may look for, but generally we have seen that the startups get that exemption. It's a fairly easy process. And adding to that, if any of the startups here have any specific questions with respect to any any demand that they have, or any kind of appeal that they may have done to the Department of Revenue, CBDT has also set up a specialized cell, a grievance cell for the startups. And I'll also post the contact details of the officer who looks at these grievances. These are very specific tax related grievances that the startups have. What we have seen is that the responses to these queries are fairly quick and prompt. So, that can be useful for the startups as well.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Ati. And, can you also give us a quick overview into, the entire timeline of this? Typically, what is the timeline in terms of responses that the startups can expect once they go ahead and submit their application?
Typically, I'm talking about the maximum time. It takes 7 to 10 days, but that is, on the higher side. On the average, it takes approximately 3 to 4 days for the startups to receive a communication.
Got that. Perfect. So I think, that definitely solves for that. And just to answer your question, Devendra, you will definitely fall within the last 3, having just been 3 years old. I think from what Ati and Ipshita said, you definitely fall within the criteria of registering yourself on DPIIT and applying for the exemption. Right, Ati? So we've got one startup that said they're 3 years old and can they go ahead and apply for the exemption now?
That, as I said, that depends on the eligibility criteria. What is the entity type there, and what is the exemption that they want to apply for?
Absolutely, but broadly, Devendra, if you're within 3 years and your entity type is what you see on the screen from an eligibility side, I think you should go ahead and apply and see how it works. Perfect. So I think we've come towards the end of the questions as well. So thank you so much, Ipshita, Ati, and Nazia. It's a great 30-minute that we had, and thank you so much, Anubhav, as well. Thanks for joining us today, all the 4 of you, and I'm really glad that a lot of our questions got resolved. And the best part was to see a lot of incubator CEOs that we've usually interacted with across the country, and especially a lot of them from the emerging states, to have been there and asked all these questions on behalf of their startups. So once again, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure from Head Start's point of view, driving Startup September. Many of you have been attending these sessions every day in the last 15 days. It only gets better with the next 15 days, seeing a lot more intense sessions. In fact, tomorrow we have the India-Finland Startup Hub Day with close to about 18 speakers coming in and speaking between 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Fully focused on the India and Finland startup ecosystem. So look forward to hosting all of you there tomorrow between 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. We've got a lot of big names from the accelerator world and founders and academic research from both India as well as Finland. Of course, from India's side, we've got a lot of people actively involved in the academic research to monetization, including IIT Madras, IIM Bangalore. We've also got the head of Geo, Reliance Geo's GenNext, Manipal University's incubator. We've also got a lot of speakers from top accelerators in Finland, including Red Brick Accelerator, Kiosk. In fact, the best part was a lot of Indian startups have very recently in the last 6 months gotten into some of these accelerators in Finland as well. So, look forward to hosting you all tomorrow between 5 to 7 for the session with the Indian and Finland startup ecosystem. The next few days, you can expect a lot more of our international ecosystem members coming in and addressing Indian startups. And the last 5 days, of course, of the month is going to be summits focused on just investors, incubators, and startups. So thank you so much once again, Startup India team. It is a pleasure hosting all of you, and thank you so much for patiently resolving all the queries of our guests here.